just trying to stay present. And
Yeah.
and
But
but
you
here's
guys know each
another
other 20
20.
years?
Here's another 20, right? Hopefully.
I feel like I known him for 20
Yeah.
years, watching him on screen for 20. No, no, no. Twilight, 20 years.
Uh,
Suppress.
First and foremost, I'm Najee Chambers from the Culture Collective. Peter and Shiva, thank you so much for your time today, and congratulations on your latest project, Vows. Excuse me. That's going to be available November 14th on demand and digital. How you two doing today?
Great, thank
Thanks for
you.
having us on.
Absolutely, absolutely. Peter, I want to start well with you. Last time we spoke, we talked about the film The Unbreakable Boy, still one of my favorite films this year. And obviously, stepping into this role as Sam in Deadly Vows is definitely a change of pace. But I mean, everybody knows how talented you are, and
Uh,
to see that range. But the reason why I wanted to kind of refer back to Unbreakable Boy, and we both love the work that the Kingdom Story Company does in terms of storytelling. It to me, and how you advocate and collaborate with them, instantly makes you one of my favorite people. And
thanks.
also because I know that you take roles that have very important and messages that need to be told and elevated and put into the world. I want to start off with you because I'm sure all the women in the world, and even us guys that are aware that this is an issue and a story that has been told over and over and over and over, and rightfully so, because the issue persists, remains, and continues to be a subject of conversation that needs a solution, especially when it comes down to males. So I wanted to ask you, what do you hope that men take away from this? And then ultimately, what are some of the inner issues you hope that they identify and diagnose before it gets to the point of domestic violence and abuse and just ultimately detrimental to them and the folks around them?
What a great question. Yeah, look, these types of films can easily be chalked up as like this is a female story. So I'm so glad you recognize that because as a male, like it is a male story too. Because if we could fix the trauma in there, then that becomes less of a story, right? So and also domestic abuse happens on both sides too. But
Yes.
this one particularly, the male has domestic abuse towards the female. It's based on a true story, on true events, and when I read it, I mean, it's hard to believe that somebody would start off with so much love for somebody and then get to another point where they have so much hate and vitriol from them that they want to hire a hitman to wipe them off the face of the earth. How do you get from there, that love going down the aisle to that other place was
Yeah.
an interesting thing for me to go, I need to explore that. And so in looking at this role, my character's not doing nice things, and it could be a caricature very fast. And so when I
Yeah.
approached it, I thought, why? How? Those are the questions I kept asking. And it comes from trauma, that male childhood trauma that my character had repeats itself if you don't fix it, and if hurt people. So,
Yeah.
the story in that for males is like fix your stuff, fix, and for anybody really, but in this story particularly, like if you fix your trauma and get in touch with that trauma, then you can get to a place where you no longer continue the patterns.
Yeah.
So it was an important story for me when I read the script to like I have three sisters, three daughters. I was like, I want to get that message out there for females, but also for men too, to be like, it starts with us. It
Yeah.
starts with us to really take a look at how we're treating other human beings and why, and we're taught to be strong. We're taught to like, and in that, my character turns to alcoholism, because he wants to be strong, so he can't deal with the pain, and then you end up numbing it. So,
Hmm.
being able to take a look at your stuff to fix it. and we just talked about this in a past interview with Shiva, with another reporter, that what her character does at the end is so important when she goes to that ceremony and she's able to explore her
Yeah.
abuse and her trauma, and she's working on herself, you know? She's not
Yeah.
playing a victim. She's going, I'm going to fix this trauma. I can forgive this person, and it doesn't mean that what they did was okay. It's me saying, I'm not going to take on your baggage anymore, and I'm able to free myself and move forward. And that's what my character couldn't do.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that and really appreciate the perspective. Shiva, to kind of piggyback off of that and that exact scene, because that's definitely where I wanted to explore first and foremost. I think it just, and maybe I say it biasly, but honestly, it's the damn truth. Being raised by two women, the measure of resilience in the woman's spirit, and there's no match to it. To even get to a point when she's clearly the survivor, but to still take a moment of reflection and saying, what could I have done better? What can I do to fix? Or even the smallest amount of empathy in a time where I feel like it's very warranted to be selfish because you're 100% the survivor in everything that has occurred right now. It's just why I really do feel women are really the ones that's going to heal the world going forward. um, it's a powerful scene, and the scene after that is even more powerful. And to get to my question here, because like as I said in the beginning, we've seen this story. J Lo and Enough is an example, and we understand sort of and to have complete sensitivity to it, but for theatrical reasons, the tropes in this story, we see it. But I love how this film decided to take it another step. First, I want to start off by the scene Peter mentioned and the cultural practice there. I want to ask you about why was it important to have that scene? Can you talk about the cultural significance and how that was shot? And then to go to the scene after that, with Dara and her mother. Man, and I think it's also like a vehicle for the viewers because while we see the audience kind of eyed in and how Melody is speaking about what her daughter has been through and how this may seem like a small incident or even something that's just currently happening in Iran, but like no, this is a global thing that's happening. You can tell this is a moment of reaching not only to the viewers but to the world of saying like everybody lock in. These things are happening right now to your neighbors, to your colleagues, whatever it may be. So I just wanted to know, just from those two scenes, just talk about again the cultural practice, why it was significance, and then to that scene, just how important was that to be in there and just workshopping that with everybody together in a collaborative effort.
The second scene, you mean the ayahuasca scene, the tea scene? That's what you're talking. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Um, yeah, everything you said, so culturally, obviously, there's a lot of, I'm Iranian, I'm also from, ethnically, I was born in Iran, and there's the oppression on women there, and it doesn't just end there. So it was very important for me to be able to tell this as in a global sense, because domestic violence happens everywhere. But at the same time, like, a lot of women escape Iran or countries like Iran, and they come to places like the United States, Canada, Europe for a better life, for freedom and freedom of speech, and to escape from oppression. And I personally can relate to that because that's exactly what I did with me, my mom, my sister. We were separated from my dad, and we escaped Iran as well. We migrated to Turkey and then Canada, and then I moved here myself, and that really thickens your skin, And
yeah,
when you are in situations like this, you don't know. I mean, I can speak as a woman, you don't know what you're capable of until you are in a situation like this, and you don't know how powerful you are. Like to this day, I think of my mom, and she's the strongest person I know with what she had to go through, migrating with two daughters, two young daughters, and having to come from all the way from that part of the world, and everything that we went through. We got stuck in Istanbul. So I think we all have, as immigrants, we all have fascinating stories. Um, and that, of course, resonated with me with Darya because she escaped the war-torn country, and she came to United States to become a doctor and have a better life, and yet she still has to go through this domestic violence issue and a global issue. But like you said, this was taken to a next level because it wasn't just an abusive relationship. It was more than that. She had to put up with the fact that her ex-partner is now out to kill her, and she's literally looking over her shoulder and she's on the run with her two kids. So I really had to explore how that feels. And I did speak to a bunch of victims. Even after our first screening, there was a few women that, I mean, I get emotional talking about it because it's crazy how much this film talks to a lot of people who are going through this behind closed doors, men or women. Obviously, domestic
Yeah.
violence knows no gender,
Yeah.
but and it speaks to them, and then they come out and they're like, yeah, me too. I'm doing this. I'm going through that, and um, so yeah. So I have no idea what you asked me because I just got so emotional talking about this. But basically, that's where I had to dive into from my cultural background and then into the character, but also that she's not a victim. And that's what that scene was.
Yeah.
She went through her journey of this tragic experience that is so dark, and she had to cope with it, but she didn't stay in a PTSD mode, and she basically healed herself through purging, through going through this emotional, ayahuasca sort of therapy, and that helped her to see other people and be able to create a charity to help other women or other people who are experiencing this domestic violence issue.
Well said. Thank you. And yeah, it doesn't matter if you answer the question. The things needed to be said that needed to be said here.
Yeah.
The directors obviously know the film better than anybody. But as the viewer, I totally agree because it was described, they described this film as a testament to resilience and forgiveness. I mean, I very, very much say that I feel the best human quality in anybody is resilience. It's always about how you persevere out of a situation or how you guided yourself to the light at the end of the tunnel. But yeah, right there, right next to it, 100% is forgiveness. And we absolutely could use a lot of that in society day to day. And you put the two of that together and you talk about putting a film with those two themes. I mean, how can you not leave this from feeling moved? So I wanted to know for you all too, because while these stories are going to be deeply personal to viewers, could be deeply personal to you yourself, your journey, the folks around you. But at the end of the day, you two are both still professionals. You have to, perform and put these characters on screen. How did you balance both the thriller aspect of this story, but also the empowerment and the healing component to it as well? I'm gonna start with you, Peter, please.
Uh, well, just touching upon forgiveness, because I think that's such an important thing you said about resilience and forgiveness. Sometimes forgiveness, people are like, well, how could you forgive that? This thing that happened. But forgiveness is interesting thing because forgiving doesn't mean that what the other person did is okay.
Yes.
It means you're able to look at it and forgive for yourself so that you can move forward and not take that on as being the victim, as being like carrying it into other relationships, carry and passing it on the trauma onto the next person. So like forgiveness is such an important thing that shouldn't get mistaken with approval of the other person's behavior. So
Yeah.
so um so I love that resonated, and the resilience and the forgiveness together is such a powerful combination. But for me, the question was playing this character and how I approached it is like trying to understand the why and the how this person came to be, trying to figure out his own trauma that he was destined to repeat because he wasn't fixing it himself. That helped me not make him, a caricature and really understand his emotional journey. You know what I mean? Not
Yeah.
that, again, I'm sitting there going, he's a victim, but he is in his own right where he was abused. And the downfall for him was that he stayed in that victimhood and then he didn't, have the forgiveness, he didn't have the resilience, and that became, his downfall, his
Yeah.
tragedy that he ended up now passing along. and then this monster that he couldn't stop, you know. Um, so in looking at it from all of those views, I was able to tap into this character, and there are times where I went home feeling like I'm portraying these horrible acts. I feel so bad. I feel shame. I feel guilt. You carry that with you. Even as an actor, you're like can't help but feel like, oh, I hope I didn't hurt, Shiva today when and there was
Yeah.
every time we finished the scene, I'm like, Shiva, you okay? She's like, yeah, I'm
Love
fine.
it.
When you create that safe environment, then you're able to
Yeah.
like explore more. Um, but having those feelings of shame and guilt, I was able to understand his pattern then, Um, and there were times where it would keep me up at night too. Like it didn't
Mm.
feel good doing those things, even portraying them.
Yeah.
Um, and then going to work the next day and having to do it again, and so but being able to explore the whys and the hows really helped me understand it. And
Yeah. And Shiva, before I let you get in for a question, because Peter just reminded me of something. There's this also component, and you did mention it earlier, but I want to further elaborate on, if you could further elaborate a little bit on it, is the generational trauma that his character Sam's goes through. Um, well, Dara has kids as well too,
yeah,
and I don't think there was we didn't get to spend enough time about, while mom is obviously in protection mode and almost self-preservation mode at this rate, we don't really get to see what that next day looked like when it comes down to the kids. Because while the message is being amplified to more self the adults, I think it's also important that the kids are able to identify
yeah.
exactly what's happening, but also not just what's happening to their parents, respectfully, but also to how this could impact them going forward.
Mhm.
Um, could you talk a little bit about how do you feel like this message does translate to the youth, and ultimately, what do you hope that they are able to pick up
Yeah.
from this?
Well, kids are the silent witnesses to everything, and they absorb everything, right? So, like, there's a scene that really stayed with me, even when I think about it, like when he kind of has that outburst with Darya in the kitchen, and he, hurts her very badly, and the kids are sitting there on the staircase, and he looks up and he yells at them to go to their room, and there's so much guilt and shame, and then also uh not being able to be truthful in that moment that I really hurt your mom, going to the hospital and pretending that everything's okay, being threatening in a weird way to Daria because hey, you're gonna mess this up for your kids and using that manipulation. Um, but who, also who suffers, not just the wife, but the children. They see what's going on, they know what's
Yeah,
going on. They're at that hospital, they know mom's not okay, but then they're asked to like pretend like it didn't happen because mom and dad, we're a family and we're gonna have a good day today. And then it becomes like you're walking on eggshells because you're like, is it okay? Is mom and dad okay? Well, today they are, and then maybe the next day they aren't.
mm,
So scenes like the one in the kitchen where he buys her this bracelet and he wants to apologize, and you see how fast it escalates into something else, are so truthful because domestic abuse isn't like my husband's bad all the time because then you would leave them. There's moments of like kindness, there's moments of being a loving father, then there's moments where they're not. So it gets very confusing for the person to be like, well, there's this side of them that I love and this side of them that's a monster. And that's not them. And then the person becomes protective of like not wanting to see them as the monster and giving benefit of the doubt that they're going to be okay, and then it becomes this cycle of you know between the two people a dance, and until someone stops it, and Dari is strong enough. Shiva's character Dari is strong enough to stop it.
yeah,
And then even then they got divorced, and then he comes back and he tries to hire a hitman to kill her, and it's just like she thought she was out of the
yeah,
situation, and it's still haunting her. So when she comes at the end of the movie, she's able to go through all of that, find the strength to get out of the relationship, and still be haunted by it and have to be on the run, and then still find the forgiveness and a path forward and a healing path for herself. That's the resilience. That's the strength. That's the, you know, thing where you walk away going, I'm inspired by that journey.
Yeah.
Mm.
Go ahead, Shiva. I'd love to hear your take on everything here.
Yeah, what you were saying with the kids is so important too because a lot of things stay with you as a kid, doesn't it? I mean, I still have vividly remember a fight that my parents had when I was like 6 years old, you know? So, um, that's definitely important, and how you handle that with your kids as parents is really important. Like I do love that one scene on the balcony when I'm having a conversation with my son, and you know and like my mom did this personally sometimes, like when there would be a fight, and to make sure that the kid doesn't hate a parent, you know, and she says your father loves you very much, I know deep in my heart. And you know, because you you don't ever want your kids to look at your a parent as a monster, no matter what is going on between the two of you. And and the fact that how do you break that to your kids, you know? So her having to be on the run, and I think there was a lot going on with Daria the entire time, you know, like the it was denial, denial, denial from the very beginning, from the moment the detective tells her, and it's almost like even when she's like getting ready to escape, and she doesn't want to completely, even though the son kind of knows what's happening, and she doesn't want to completely expose her ex-husband, and they go through this, and it's not until the moment where when the detective actually calls her in the hotel room and says, "We got him." And that was another whole other moment where she's like, he was actually going to go through with this, you know? So there's so much denial up to that point, and it's kind of hard at that point for Dario to just hide it from her kids. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it's really conflicting because at the same time you're trying to protect them, and you don't want them to hate their dad. So she had to live with that, and even though they were like on the run, the legal system failed her. Um, but at the same time, and I spoke to a woman who is dealing with this as we speak, you know, and she's constantly trying to say, you know, your father loves you guys. He just there was empathy, you know, and
Yeah.
we showed that on in the movie. He went through a dark path because he had a traumatic childhood, and you know the drinking problem, and he can come on top, and you know, so you're constantly trying to stay positive for
Yeah.
yourself and for your ex-partner. So,
Yeah.
and I basically just kept that in through the whole film as
Yeah.
Daria.
I think it's in a way, I think it's such a it's an easy way to sort of navigate things. And much like Peter said, like, you know, it doesn't mean you are condoning actions, but I think in a way of wanting to see the best in people and wanting to hope that humanity is healing and society is doing the right things and leading through empathy is truly, I think, is the way of success here. But yeah, I think it's a I know it's a constant struggle for me because it's a sense of like you want the better, you want to see the better, you're rooting for these folks to do better, but at times you're disappointed because some people just aren't using the resources around them or just fail to come to terms with the issues that they have, and that's why you two are both right. There is a story both here from both perspectives about how everybody can do and be better in terms of tackling domestic violence and abuse
And
going
at one
forward.
point, you have to maybe step away and help yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Self care for sure. That's for sure.
That's you try, and but you know, you do have to help yourself first, just so you can be there for the rest and for your kids and so on. So
Absolutely. I mean, and like obviously these stories don't need sequels, but like you're so invested into the story and so invested into the characters. I mean, that's literally what I want to know. Like, what was the conversation that she has with her kids after this is all done? What does she do to sort of get, you know, back to like feeling herself and not really having to look under the covers? What are the self-care, you know, tactics that are being used in order to like really get back to this being 100? But then ultimately, too, as we see by the end of this film, Sam is a free man. You know, what is the system's response and society's to respond when these things are happening, when it's clearly happening? There's a clear and definitive actions that were executed here, and somebody sees the light of day somehow, some way, and you that's a story for another time.
That's Deadly Vows too.
Yeah, yes, for sure. Uh, Peter, my guy, you look good, man. I tell you, if I told you 20 years, what would you say? What were you doing 20 years ago?
Blink of an eye, man. I mean, 20 years could be yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes a week feels like 20 years and 20 years feels like yesterday. So time is such a weird illusion. It's just like sometimes I'll be like, hey, since COVID too, sometimes I'm like, oh, I just saw that person a year ago. They'll be like, no, I haven't seen you for 4 years.
Yeah.
Why? I
Wow.
mean, it feels like literally God sat on the remote control and we're in fast forward of life because like life just zips by so fast and just trying to stay present
Yeah.
and
But
but
you
here's
guys know each
another
other 20
20.
years?
Here's another 20, right? Hopefully.
I feel like I known him for 20
Yeah.
years, watching him on screen for 20. No, no, no. Twilight, 20 years.
Uh,
Yeah. And I was wondering, 'cause I was like, why is Twilight all of a sudden just booming on social media? Like people are doing clips and reacting to it. And obviously it's hitting different streaming services and what on in it. And obviously it was just a cultural movement. So again, once again, congratulations to that.
Mm.
I'm hoping you're very proud of looking exactly the same. I
good
mean, a
try.
little bit more color in your skin for sure, but exactly the same in it. But I
Well,
do.
the character was 350, so that's what helps.
Yeah, I was gonna say not as pale. He's not
Yeah.
as pale.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure, but were either of you all at the screening last night that had a Q&A?
I was, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I
okay.
missed that one, but how, I mean, while we're here, how what did people respond to it?
Literally was going to ask. Yes.
Oh yeah, you won't believe it. Yeah, we had I mean, when you've been working on post-production for so long and you keep seeing clips and edits on your laptop constantly, and then you don't know how people are going to receive it because you're so in it and you don't know. And it really hits differently, especially when you watch it in a theater. And there's something about being in a theater and watching a film in a dark room with everyone else and just, getting lost in the story than just on TV. So
Yeah.
I sat through most of it last night again, and it's definitely such an emotional roller coaster, and everyone was right there, and then it was received really well, and people were crying, and someone even mentioned that at the end there's the part where Darya speaks, to the crowd right before the end. Some of the people in the theater started clapping, not realizing that that's still in the movie. So they were
Yeah.
so engaged and invested in the whole story, and the Q&A was done by a mental health specialist, and yeah, it was received really well, and I'm really excited for everyone to be able to watch it as of November 14th.
Hmm.
Thank you for that. Well, I
Yeah.
feel like I have to wrap the interview there because you put a nice bow on it. But no, truly, I just want to again thank you both for the time, the space to talk about this film and telling stories like this. Unfortunately, we hope that one day we don't have to continue to invest time, energy, and whatever in terms of telling these stories and hope they'll become a thing of the distant past. But while we are still very adamantly working through it and looking to get to a better place in terms of humanity and society, I'm very grateful to be able to watch something like this, to be able to spread the message about this, and hopefully other folks who are struggling and needing the outlet or just, somebody to talk to or the lack of feeling seen because they think maybe they're the only ones or they don't know how exactly to get out of it. Hopefully, it just does inspire them and reach out to folks. And I'm saying hopefully they will, 100% will, because of this. And it's just a phenomenal film and phenomenal performances by you both in doing so. So I thank you for that. But as you mentioned, November 14th, on demand and digital. I wish I could say theaters because I fully agree. I fully agree. This is one you would love to see in there for sure. But Deadly Vows, thank you so much, Shiva and Peter, for the time today. And congratulations
Thank
on
you.
another
Thank
You're
successful one.
always so thoughtful with your questions, and I appreciate that. Always
And
enjoy talking to you.
thanks, buddy. I really appreciate you. Have a good one. And
you.
hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I mix.